So our topic today, we got the integrating and analysing data to its full potential. A little bit misleading. It's not actually going to be full. We're going to talk more around sort of possibilities and potential, and we're going to link it with a project we've been working on the past couple of years. So what we're going to try to do is show you a little bit of an application that we've built. We've basically built AMS to go on the Apple Watch. So step one, we're going to show some live data going through into the watch. We're then going to show the data, how it goes into HealthKit, which is a platform which sits on everyone's iPhone where the data goes. We're then going to show how the data gets picked up from an application developed from Fusion Sport called SmartHealth Sync, and it's going to pass the data into Smartabase, or the AMS. Once it gets into there, I'm going to hand over to Ian, and he's going to go over sort of the more harder stuff, I guess, in terms of how we move data around. So we don't just push it into Smartabase and have it there. We want to show how we transition it and how we move it to make full effect of it. And then the last part, we're going to show just some cool outputs that we get. So we're going to split that into two. We want to show some outputs that the athlete sees on a new app that we've created. And then we're also going to show more of like a staff or coach view, how we integrate sort of data sets. All right, before we start, I know this is way too small for even the people up the front, but this is a picture of our setup at the moment. So we're a little bit different to, say, a single sport or a professional club. So we implemented at the AIS, but then we also link in each of our state sport institutes and also our state academies. On top of that, we then link in also up to around 40 national sporting organisations. So Lisa, who spoke this morning, Netball Australia, is one of them, and we also do it for the other 30 odd. Like everyone, we've got all these core modules and injury things that we've built, different features and reporting and analytics and some warehousing. What we've probably spent the last 12 to 18 months on is more around the integration side. So over on the left there's all these little icons of, I suppose, third-party systems that we integrate with. And today, we're sort of going to be touching on just a few areas around the system as a whole. All right, so step one. So we wanted to actually go through the actual data collection part, because we can't really show integration and analysing data to get potential from it if we don't have the data. So what we're going to do is we're going to plug in the phone and we're going to show you the iPhone app and based from the watch that comes through. But before we did that, we just wanted to give you a little bit of background about this application. So it was purely a project aimed at engagement. So we wanted to get as many of our athletes sort of really engaged in the data that they were putting in to Smartabase. So if we're asking you to put in, say, 5 to 6 entries a day, we wanted to make sure that the athletes could get something back from it straight away. So we've been developing this Apple Watch app for a bit over 2 years now. We're up to version 67, I think the last release was. And we designed the watch app that you'll see going there, but then we also designed what's called a companion app on the left of the watch there, and we'll plug that in and take you through that. We did quite a big pilot exercise a couple of years back, where we had 120 athletes, and some of the pictures here are just the organisations who assisted in the feedback process of using this watch. Some got right into it, and they've integrated into like their daily training environment. Other organisations who tried to help out, just like they may have had just 1 or 2 staff members who tested it really well and then gave feedback. So, but all of it was awesome, just so we could keep feeding back all those improvements into the watch app. All right, so here's Ian. So pretend he's like an athlete in the morning. We're going to go through a wellness entry and we're going to go through a training entry. So without going too much into what the Apple Watch is, it's sort of like a little iPhone that sort of sits on your wrist, and it's got all these little gadgets and things that you can do with it. What we've done on the screen here, we made a little, it's called a complication, which sits on the bottom right, a little AIS logo. And you can see just probably, there's 2 little crosses there. So the whole idea here is that when an athlete does their wellness in the morning, they get a tick. When they do their training in the morning, they get a tick. So this is one of the things we found that athletes were using their watches for other purposes, but if we put it on the front screen, as soon as they saw it, that sort of, it's that constant reminder during the day, which was really good. So Ian's going to click on the AMS app down here. So you can see it goes to the front menu. Straight from here, we're going to go into a wellness entry. So this might be when he's woke up first thing in the morning. One of the other things, we're not going to get too much into this, but we integrated the app with like one of the world's leading sleep monitoring apps. So it's called Auto Sleep, and what's happened here is that the app's detected that he's wore the watch to bed, and it's actually prompting him to say, do you want to use exactly to this minute when you went to sleep, and then when you woke up at this minute. So the advantage of this is that we get all the average heart rates, we get all the waking pulse, we get the deep sleep hours. Basically everything that's captured on that app we can pull through as part of this wellness sleep question. So he might say okay here, or he might say cancel. Cancel lets him override the hours. He can just use what's called the crown spin on the side. So in this case he's saying, what are you going to do, 10 o'clock to bed, 9 o'clock, just pick a number.
I'll go back.
Oh no, he's going to go back, he's going to use the auto sleep one. Yep, so he's just going to confirm that. So he said yes. Then we just go through some wellness questions that a lot of other sports sort of use. So we just use 7-scale ones. It uses, once again, the spin. We find the descriptive text is really good in terms of, rather than just sort of numbers, we try actually get them to describe it. So here we've got a fatigue question. Just pick anything. All right.
Let me do my one.
All right, soreness. Sorry, Ian, soreness this morning. How you feeling?
Really sore.
Oh yeah, it's sore. 5. Where are we now? We're at stress. It's pretty relaxed, normal. All right, so that's pretty much the entry done. So the users can just save from here. One of the things we found though with wellness is that we didn't want to miss all those comments where athletes are articulating how they feel. So with the developer of the watch and talking to Apple, we found that we can actually use this really cool sort of speech-to-text dictation that you use on your phone. So we've got 2 options here. There's a little comments box where the user can open that up and they can talk into it. So I think we're going to give it a go.
Great presentation, Todd.
Done. Perfect. Thank you, Ian. All right, so he can confirm that, or if it messes it up, then he can hit cancel and say it again. But we're actually finding that it's really accurate in terms of what it picks up. The other one next to the comments, that's a little vitals box that's there. So what you can do with HealthKit is that if you actually say there's probably about 20 different metrics where it will recognise what you're saying into it. So things like weight or blood sugar, caffeine levels, anything like that, and it will recognise what it is and put it into the actual field. So maybe try
85 kilograms.
Yeah, so you say 85 kilos and that should come up and it confirms that it's a body weight that's recognised it as. And that's going to actually go and update in HealthKit on your phone where your weight goes. So if you've got other apps that also reference that weight from HealthKit, it'll be using the same value. So into wellness, we just give a little quick bit of feedback that goes through. So we just show a little bit of sleep history over the last 7 days. And from this, Ian can just save the entry and he's done. So that's the wellness entry done. All right, we're going to do a training entry. Before I do that quickly, I was going to show, we've got a couple options with no training and then also quick starts. So no training was a bit of a funny one with a lot of our athletes we saw, where we could have really engaged people putting in lots of training entries, but for some reason they'd always miss no training. So we tried to make this just really quick and easy. So no training is allowing the athletes, once again, they pick up their watch, not training today, might be travelling. And as soon as they pick one of them, that's the entry done. So we found that's been a really good one to capture. Down the bottom, we can set up what's called quick starts with the watch. So some of the feedback we got from athletes was that they didn't want to have to go through all the training, picking which sensor type and which activity all the time, because they had common things that they would usually do. So we've got the functionality where we can set up 5 quick starts. So you can see with Ian, he likes lunch runs, hockey training, a bit of cross training. And the idea is that he can pick one of these, skips I think 2 steps, and then he's sort of straight into his his activity. So it's a nice quick one for him just to start the training straight away. The way we're going to start it, we're going to put in a couple training entries, and I'm going to talk you through with Ian, but we wanted to get one where we get this elevated heart rate coming through. So I was going to pick someone from random to come up here and do some push-ups or go for a bit of a run. And if I look down there, I think I see, is that you, Trent? Trenty Garrett? Where are you? Trent happens to be wearing a watch too. We told him we weren't going to do this, but I need to get him up because... So Trent's going to start a training entry. I might get you to just go for a run down the stairs or something for a minute or two. So I'm going to talk you through here because Morrow's so relaxed and calm, his heart rate's just not going to get up very high. But we want to show you how it can go up. So yep, you start that. Stairs, 2 minutes, 1 minute? Yep. All right, so Trent's go up. So training, all right. So what we go through here, so here's an athlete who's rocked up at training. We've got different sensor types that are here. So these are all pre-built with the Apple Watch. So depending on what activity you pick, that sort of defines what the sensor reading will be for the heart rate. So pick any one of these, Ian. So he's going to pick cricket and bowling. So with our workflow, we found out that we needed to put sort of two options in. So we have a lot of athletes who can't wear the watch when they train. We might have boxers or basketballers or you might wear it in training but not in competition. So the idea here is to have an automated one and also a manual option. So the manual option is quite good in that, let's say after the game, they can still come in, they can do their duration on it. They're basically just picking the time and through, to and from I should say, and that's going to get our duration. What we prefer, and this is linked as part of the feedback I guess, where we'll show you the iPhone app, is the more entries you can do on the automated one, the more richer data that you get back. So we'll start a training entry here for Ian. So this glance that you can see at the moment when they're training, it's all customizable from the iPhone app because we found some athletes wanted to see different things compared to one from say a swimmer who likes to see laps. And what you can do here, we've got sort of max heart rate percentage coming up, distance up in the top left, but even as he's training you can sort of start clicking through different metrics. You can do rest intervals by scrolling down, which isn't working. There we go. So there's a rest one, which is actually going to keep the duration for the session going, but we're actually going to flag when the rest period started and then when the rest period recommenced or the training recommenced. You can also do splits, or you can enable auto splits when you're running. Might be a K or maybe you're a 200 metre runner. It's a pretty quick split, Ian. But yeah, so once a training entry finishes, Ian will complete the session. And here we're going to tag on some of the additional questions. So this is what we really liked about the Apple Watch, is that we could structure it around what we wanted to ask. There's a lot of other apps out there where that would pretty much end your session, but we obviously wanted to tag on some additional metrics. So the first one obviously being the RPE, so we can get the internal load. So how was that session, Ian? It's all right, 10 out of 10. So he's going to put his RPE in. Then we're going to go to the training status. So we've got two boxes there. One's so we can flag modified training, and the other green one there is so we can flag full training. So Ian's going to select full training. We like to flag or tag any injuries that may have occurred as part of that session. So once again, just another descriptive question back to the athlete. Because Ian picked balls, you did cricket fielding, bowls. So we can overlap additional questions to be asked based on the activity type. So this was one we did with Cricket Australia, where they really wanted to make sure they got the balls bowled as part of the activity. So it's sort of an additional one that only comes on if you pick that activity. So 60 balls bowled. And then similar to the wellness, they can hit the comments and they can talk into that. So they might say, hard training session or something. And the same with the vitals, where they can put in a metric there. The competition one, it's a really good one where we want to flag the matches or the competitions from the entry. So they can just use a little toggle to say that it was that. And then similar again, we'll give back feedback on the session that came through. So it might be calories, heart rate, all that sort of thing, and a little bit more on training load. So we'll save the entry there. and that will be the training entry done. He gets a little quick summary on what went there. All right, we're going to show you a little bit more on this later, but what happens now is this is the little sync app which sits in the background and runs. You don't have to go and open this, it will just happen automatically when an entry goes through. But what it's doing now, it's going into HealthKit, it's grabbing the data, and it's pushing it to Smartabase. All right, back to the slides. Just a quick one here. This was an important one we just wanted to mention, where because we've got so many different athletes in various sports, we wanted to make sure that we could actually integrate the app that we were building with other applications. So the way we designed it is that if you do a training entry, it will look at any other entries that are in HealthKit for that day. So we may have runners or guys in triathlon who like to use the Nike Run Club, they can use that one. We might have cyclists who like to use Strava. Regardless of what you use, if you use one of the apps, it will actually notify you when you bring up the AMS one. So in this case, like if I went for a ride this morning and used Strava, it will say, notice you've done a 22-minute ride today, do you want to use that entry? And the beauty of that is we get all the metrics still captured within that application, but then we get to start tagging on the internal load questions and the injury questions that we want within the AMS app. All right, I'm going to hand over to Ian now. So we've got the data we've collected on the watch, and the next part's the HealthKit and the SmartHealth sync.
Okay, does everyone know what health is? Does everyone know health exists on your iPhone? How many iPhone users? How many Samsung users? All of netball, I see. Samsung Diamonds, well done. So health is quite a nice little app. It sits on the iPhone. It's probably one of the slight cons of the project. It doesn't live on an iPad or an iPod or anything like that. You need it on your device, so you can only use HealthKit for one person at a time. The good thing about it is that the athlete can pretty much control their privacy settings directly from it. So if you've used any other health app on the App Store, you would have noticed it asks you for your health permissions when you first open it. So by doing that, the athletes can control exactly what gets passed through to Smartabase. It's not just about your training, so if you've opened it, you would have seen there's a lot of sleep information in there. If you use any nutrition apps, it will also collect that information and can pass it directly over. Apple also have a research kit and care kit, which are they sort of all pass back into health, but they're two really good applications also if you've never looked into those. Okay, so all the data goes back to health, and then this is where Fusion were really good. Murph and Mark from Fusion developed this app called SmartHealth Sync. So the athlete just logs into it once, and then it sits in the background on their phone. It will just detect any changes in health and cause them to sync back to Smartabase. So it all sounds quite easy, but we've definitely had a lot of issues with this along the way, and a lot of versions come out. So it's been a bit of hard work to get to this point here. Okay, so part of the reason why we wanted to show you that was that the HealthKit data, if you're familiar with Smartabase, it all just gets dumped into one form as it comes into Smartabase. So what we have to do then is, because we look after many users, we have different squads of athletes. Some might be using this app, some might be using the Smartabase app, some might be using Training Peaks, some might be using Team Builder to get all their data into Smartabase. So we have to move it around the system so that the coaches can effectively look at the data all in one spot. So this is where I see Roanne smiling up the back. So we've done a lot of work, and we thank Roanne very much for assisting us to get these smart flows to where they are today. So for every entry that comes in to Smartabase, we use a smart flow to move it somewhere else. So there's potentially 3,000 to 4,000, I reckon, a day of these running as information comes in. Could be more, could be less. But we just thought we'd take you through an example of what's just happened by me doing the sync on my phone just then. So it comes into the HealthKit activity here. From there, my data comes down into the hockey form. and then back out into this AMS training log form. So we have about 99 or 100 smart flows set up to do this across all of our sports. And so that just means that even though the information lands here, our coaches within hockey can all view their data directly in that sport monitoring form. And then because we look after the 40 Sports Aid Institute, we can do all of our reporting and dashboards off this one source here, which means we're cutting down on a lot of maintenance for ourselves, and it just makes things a lot easier to maintain in such a large system. The other thing we wanted to point out with these smart flows is this is kind of an integration that we do internally within Smartabase. So we wanted it to be a communication portal as well. We've all spoken a lot about training load and wellness today, but we really wanted to use AMS more as a whole discipline approach, get that holistic view of the athlete. So we have all our forms, all of our practitioners are entering information into these forms. Every time they enter information into that, they have an option of entering some shared notes that might be important to athlete welfare or performance. And that will trigger another smart flow to get it down into this shared communication area that we call it. So all of a sudden we have a really nice, there must be another 3,000 or 4,000 performance alerts maybe that get triggered by this across the day. But it basically creates a nice little news feed. So we have, instead of the practitioners then having to do their notes in AMS, then email coaches or whatever they enter in that shared notes, then triggers alerts that go directly out to them. So we're hopefully saving them some time. This has become really, really important workflow for us in making sure that everyone has visibility of that information pertinent to athlete performance.
We've passed it in Smartabase. We've used different smart flows and smart saves to move the data around. And where we are now, we're sort of at that visual part. So this is the end part. So we're going to split this up into two. We're going to show the iPhone companion app, which links with the watch. And then we're going to jump into show a bit more of the actual Smartabase dashboards and things that are on it. All right, so Ian's going to fire up the app. So you can see, you can't see, I can see, down the bottom there is a navigation bar. We've got things like wellness, training, insights, watch, and there's a status navigation ribbon. So we'll start with wellness. So an example here, so the athlete's been using their watch. And the way we break this up is that when they come into the wellness, up the top, they're week by weeks. So it averages everything out. So each of those bars there, that's a full week. So what have we got this week? Ian's average sleep duration, 8 hours, 7 minutes. If you go sort of back a few weeks, 8 hours, 30. You are so routine. He can slide back. You can go 16 weeks. I'm trying to find 6 months. Like a robot. Anyway, so what he can do there, when he clicks on one of these bars a week, what will happen down below is these bars is Monday to Sunday view. So if he clicks on any of these days, so if we look at last night, being tonight, Thursday, so we're trying to give sort of that engagement back to the athlete again, because they're putting in all these values on wellness. So what we do here is we reflect little circles there that show basically your 7-day average against the entry that you put in. So the outer side one, being like soreness today, is 5, but the week 7-day one is actually probably more around a 3. If you wear the watch to bed, down the bottom 2, you can actually start to see your average heart rate from last night against your 7-day average, and same with the deep sleep, where Ian's had an hour, 12 minutes of deep sleep last night, but his 7-day average is a little bit more. What we can do up the top with these entries is we can start to do overlays. So we didn't just want to limit it on duration because the athletes are putting in all these other metrics and values. We actually wanted to start to give them some feedback there. So he's selected stress. So once again, it does the average for the stress for that week, and then it gives the day-to-day view down the bottom. Same with average heart rate, which is a really good one. It will do the average for the week, but then it will do the breakups for the day-to-day. We'll go into training. So training's a similar look and feel to the wellness. So we do sort of the week-to-week breakups with the averages again. But this is all based on the internal load, so the RPE times duration that's going through. So big one for us was actually just the education of athletes to be able to self-service a little bit better in terms of the understanding of their training and just the requirement to make sure you're in consistent training. You can actually see your internal load building up in the week if you're doing those consistent sessions. So similar again, we can see 3 weeks ago Ian's had a pretty big block of 2,500 units that go through. It breaks it up into 7 days. I think that's your hockey days, is it, on Wednesday training, and then he's got one on the Saturday where he's obviously played for the watch. So once again, just athletes being able to see their heavy days against their more easier days that go through. So with one of these sessions, Ian can drill into the entry. So we drilled into one of the training sessions here. So Ian's gone for a run outdoors. Once again, we're giving info just back on how far he ran, calories, heart rate. We put in a few little maps, so that will be the time that he's gone and then the heart rate at the corresponding time. We can do pace. We can change sort of pace into miles or 100-metre splits or anything like that. And down the bottom is just an energy one. So one of the cool things we wanted to show actually was we've recently overlaid this like the map overview to it. We got really good feedback from not so much the swimmers because they're indoors, but anyone outdoors who runs and rides and things, they can start to use this map. So we wanted to make it a little bit different to some of the other ones, just to give a little bit more control back to the user. So if you don't just want to see distance, you can start to see sort of what your heart rate was there at the time. You can split it up into 15-second increments instead of 1-minute ones. We even did this flyover view. So this is Canberra, which looks really dry and dusty and not too appealing. It's very cold and icy at the moment. But so what we did here, even this flyover has been really cool, where we've had some users come back from travel and they'll sort of record it or go for a run or a walk with the GPS on. It gives you a nice little, travel journal in a sense. But once again, it's just trying to, how do we engage the people who are using the app where we want their data to make sure that they sort of put it in. All right, we come out of that one. I'll just explain quickly up the top there of the train load. So you'll see these, we call them these just little safety bubbles up the top there. So we're just using just your basic acute chronic workload ratios that are there. So, but even just the educational aspect back to athletes to show, if you're training consistently and your chronic is increasing, obviously your safe bubbles are going to expand. So it's been a really good education tool for us to actually show if they go on holidays or they reduce their training, the little bubble will start to reduce. And it's a nice little target in terms of the athletes, just trying to hit watch their column increase to get within those bubbles there. So you can see that when we hit within range, we get sort of a green or blue shade that comes through. If we're under, the bar will be reported red. If we go over, it might be orange. Once again, just trying to use the concept really simply to say, if you keep doing your entries, you'll keep seeing that, that target that you're trying to hit for that week. What else we got? We've got overlays, the same, don't worry about it. Yep, all right, status. So we found with the week to week, it's really good seeing your target build up, but we actually wanted a now view or a today view. So if the athlete or the user wakes up in the morning and we want to know how much remaining budget we've got in that internal load, what we do here on this status view is we show them where they're at today. So Ian's got a bit of a groin issue at the moment, so I think you've dropped off the last 3 or 4 days, and he's going into basically an undertraining there. The outside bar here, you'll see it starts here. That's basically like a 0.8 in terms of the acute chronic workload ratio, or 80% TSB, up to the top of the green one on the outside, which is a 1.3 or 130% TSB. And once again, it's just been a really good way for us to get some of the concepts of internal load through to athletes in terms of their training habits, but once again engage them to make sure that you put your entries in. So we found with athletes using the watch, we were actually really interested to see who looks at their phone straight after it, because we found we'd do it. We'd sort of do our entries, and then you go look at your phone, you sort of have a look at where your status was, and we were pretty blown away by how many would actually finish the session. Then they go pick up their phone, and you see straight away sort of your bubble building, which was cool. All right, this is a new one, HRV. I am definitely no guru in heart rate variability, but we just wanted to show it again. So this is a really good one for, I guess, potential or possibilities in terms of trying to see what else we can extract out of the Apple Watch. And we're using a little breathe app at the moment, so this is just all in R&D and testing at the moment, where on Wake Up, our protocol is at the moment, we do this 1 minute breathe app. It takes a HRV, also our waking pulse, and then within the app we're feeding through the HRV metric, and then we're doing all the calculations with the baselines and things that are on there. So you can see this morning, that top one, Ian's baseline, what do you got, your daily HRV, it's horrible, he's right down, but his waking pulse was up, so obviously there's lots of validation and things to do on here, and we've got some really smart people in swimming helping us out in terms of the validation, but this would be an indication that Ian's woke up quite stressed and probably not ready to train today, which is accurate because he couldn't run when we went. So what we've done here, we've sort of gone to town, or I should say our developer's gone to down too in terms of overlays, so we just didn't want to see HRV and baseline and waking pulses and things. We actually wanted to try overlay what the fitness was, or bring in sort of the safe zones and all that sort of thing. So there's heaps of different other metrics that you can use to compare on that 2-graph basis on the phone there. So maybe pick, I don't know, maybe pick you got a fitness one or something down there. There's lots. What'd you pick? So you got AIS, so that's just your daily training. What do you got? Baseline waking. Okay, yeah, so up top there, he was comparing a fitness one through to his waking pulse.
Okay, so we're sort of taking you through one project. We've been working on that for 12 to 18 months. As we said, integration's been quite key. We know different people like using different products, so we didn't want to be painted into a corner, and so Smartabase is still acted as the best back end for achieving this. So we just wanted to show you a few things here. This is what we're starting to get from some of the HealthKit data. So before, we were always just capturing training load, but what do we actually want to capture from outside of training? So we're not just getting what they're doing during their structured sessions, we're getting what they're doing at night and during the day once they leave. So this example just shows internal load up the top, dropping off over the Christmas period, but just total distance for that day is actually increasing over the Christmas period there. So we've got a lot more insight into what they're doing outside of training as well. So this one is a bit hard to see probably, but there's another integration we've been working on is with Grace Note result data. So we now get every result for every athlete, both domestic and international. And so we can start overlaying things like event data, result data, along with their training load, any injury data. And one of the other things that we've started doing, or we've been doing for a while, is instead of just doing a retrospective look at this data, we can also show coaches in these green bars here, if you can see them at all, how they can safely load an athlete over the next few weeks and keeping their TSBs in a reasonable range. Here's all our training data. We thought we'd throw this up at the end as kind of the holistic view that we're aiming for. So we've got a training load, we've got some of our availability stuff which has become quite important. And like we said, this is where some of that internal and shared communication is also coming in. It just gives our coaches one spot to go to, and they can get quite a good overview now of these integrated sources all in one sort of spot. Otherwise, that's it for us.